It all started when I stumbled upon an old, dusty book in a thrift store. I couldn't resist the urge to buy it, even though I had no idea what it was about. As I flipped through the pages at home, I realized that it was a diary written by a man named Edward in the early 1900s. The entries were strange and cryptic, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. Despite my reservations, I kept reading. Edward described strange occurrences and bizarre dreams that seemed to be connected to an ancient cursed artifact that he had come into possession of. The more I read, the more I became convinced that the artifact was real and that it was dangerous. I tried to tell myself that it was all just the ramblings of a madman, but something about that diary felt genuine and true. I became obsessed with finding out the truth and decided to do some digging of my own. I researched the history of the artifact and discovered that it had a long and bloody past, dating back to ancient civilizations. According to legend, the artifact was a small, intricately carved stone that was said to grant its owners immense power and wealth, but at a terrible cost. Those who possessed the stone were rumored to be plagued by nightmares and hallucinations, and many eventually went mad. Despite the warning signs, I couldn't resist the temptation of the stone's power and set out to find it. My search led me to an old abandoned mansion on the outskirts of town. I cautiously made my way inside, my heart racing with fear and excitement. As I searched the dusty halls, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. And then, I found it. The stone was tucked away in a hidden alcove, just as Edward had described it in his diary. Without hesitation, I reached out and picked it up. As soon as my fingers touched the cold surface of the stone, I felt a strange energy coursing through my body. It was both exhilarating and terrifying. I knew that I had to get out of there, but it was too late. The stone had already begun to exert its influence over me. My thoughts became twisted and dark, and I was overcome by an overwhelming sense of greed and ambition. I left the mansion that night with the stone in my pocket, convinced that it was the key to everything I had ever wanted. But as the days passed, the stone's power began to consume me. My nights were filled with disturbing dreams and hallucinations, and I found myself doing things that I never would have considered before. I became paranoid and reclusive, convinced that everyone was out to get me, and that the stone was the only thing keeping me safe. I knew that I had to get rid of it, but I couldn't bring myself to let it go of the power it offered. It wasn't until I had a terrible, vivid nightmare that I finally came to my senses. In the dream, I was standing in front of a large, dark portal, and I could feel the stone pulsating with energy in my hand. As I gazed into the portal, I saw a shadowy figure beckoning to me, promising me everything I had ever wanted in exchange for my soul. I woke up in a cold sweat, and in that moment, I knew that I had to destroy the stone. I gathered all my courage and headed back to the mansion, determined to get rid of the cursed artifact once and for all. As I approached the mansion, I could feel the stone trying to resist me, as if it knew what I was planning and was trying to hold on to me, but I was determined to break free of its grasp. I made my way back to the hidden alcove where I had found the stone, and with a sudden burst of strength, I smashed it into pieces. The room was filled with a bright, white light, and I felt the stone's hold on me instantly release. I collapsed to the ground, exhausted but relieved. As I lay there, I couldn't help but wonder what would have happened if I had given in to the stone's power. Would I have ended up like Edward, consumed by madness and greed? I will never know, but I do know that I made the right choice in destroying the stone. I left the mansion that day with a newfound sense of freedom and clarity, and I vowed to never let myself be tempted by power again. As I walked away from the mansion, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, but this time, it was a comforting feeling, as if someone or something was looking out for me. I may never know what really happened in that mansion, but one thing is for sure, I will never forget the lessons I learned from the cursed stone. Thank you guys for listening to tonight's story. If you enjoyed, leave a like, and don't forget to subscribe for more. Thanks.